Kansas looks to bounce back after their first loss of the season. They're back in the booth. Let's pack it. Let's go.
Yeah. This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
It's a live episode of Booth Review presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. More than excited to be on this show today. And I'm hyped to be talking to Brandon McAnderson. B-Mac, glad to have you back on the show, my friend. How you doing?
Man, I am excellent. I am glad to be here. It's a beautiful day. I can feel fall coming around the corner. I'm ready for that weather to drop just a bit.
We're so close. Saturday supposed to be like 50s. I'm already trying to figure out like which porch I'm watching college football on with my neighbors this weekend. I'm hyped, man. I can't wait. And hopefully it's after another KU win. But I want to, we didn't get to talk to you last week. I'm really looking forward to talking to you a little bit about the Texas game, a little bit about moving forward, and we might have a special guest on later today on the show. So
I'm light.
Man, no biggie. But I just, you were in Austin. I want to just kind of get the feel and the vibe from you from just, being there and just kind of what your overall thoughts were about that game.
So I want to say Texas was one of the best teams in the country on film. They are one of the best teams in the country in person. So they just have a physical front seven that is, on defense, and a great offensive line, great tight end, pros everywhere. The funny part to me was that I thought that for Kansas to be in the game, a lot would have to go right. Almost nothing went right. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at just play by play, scheme by scheme, matchup by matchup, they all went against the Jayhawks. And if you look up, there's 5 minutes left in the third quarter. It's a third and one, and you're down 6 and have a chance to take the lead when you're getting doubled up in yards just because of their resiliency. I thought the thing that stood out the most was if you're going player for player, blow for blow, toe for toe, our offensive line looked great. They opened up gaps early. They had no problem protecting the quarterback. I thought that was impressive. The defensive line, and let me just say, it was the hottest game I've ever been to. I mean, it was 100 and 110 down there, and in close space, sun in your face all game. That was a tough thing to deal with, especially when they start the tempo offense and such. But I would say overall, I was very surprised we were in the game as long as we were, considering that none of the things we expected to go right did. And I think it says a lot about the team and where they are now as opposed to where they were a year ago.
I had so many different feelings about that game, and I think there's some stuff to excuse. I don't think Texas is 26 points better than Kansas. I think KU, I do agree a lot would have had to go right for them to win the game, but I think Kansas was just so close on so many different moments within that game, and I looked at that. I walked away from that game just feeling really good about where the program is. And I know that sounds weird to say in a 26-point game, but I looked at the physicality and the effort and the depth that team played with and how hard that they played for the entirety of the game. And then I go back to these little individual moments that if there were 10 big pivotal moments in the game, Texas won 9 of them. Texas out-executed or Kansas failed to execute. There was just some key moments within that game that you're going to go back and look on and say, man, just, an extra yard here to sustain a drive. Now, I don't want to explain everything away entirely to say, because I still think a lot would have had to go right for Kansas to win. But, and there was stretches where the offense was having a hard time sustaining drives, but they were so close to getting an extra set of downs so many different times. And, I think that's the place to start. Obviously, the big storylines, Jalen Daniels' absence from the game happening a few minutes, or, an hour and a half or whatever it is before the game starts. The decision is made that, he's not going to go. Jason Bean is going to be the guy. I look back on week 1 for the Chiefs, and it'll cross over enough here. But Travis Kelce goes out after the Chiefs had installed everything in week 1 of that game, right? And so game plans, the best tight end in football is supposed to be playing this game. And so after everything's been installed for the week, they might have to make some adjustments to their game plan, try to get some stuff scrambling 48 hours before a game. Jason Bean obviously there are some things that cross over for sure with both quarterbacks, and there's certain things that play to Jalen's strengths that were probably on the call sheet that maybe you're not necessarily calling entirely for Jason B. They're different enough where that could be the case. He got thrown into the middle of it, right before the game started. And that is an extremely tough spot to be on, especially when you've been game planning the entire week, anticipating having your starting quarterback.
For sure. And it's a rhythm thing. You could tell, some of the deep balls he was throwing, you could tell the receiver was breaking at an angle different than what he expected. What was not surprising is the guy that he did have rhythm with was Trevor Wilson, which is a guy he throws to a lot in practice, so that makes sense. Those guys are used to seeing each other in that way. And Jason's just a tough kid, honestly. I mean, he went out there and he played well. You think about if they make some of those catches. I thought you talk about the moments. I thought the two moments that hurt the most was a very questionable holding call on Dominic Cooney on a 15-yard gain on the first drive when the ball was moving, and then on the second drive, the Trevor Wilson drop on the dig route, which would have converted a third down just past midfield. That was a big step because really, when you think about it, the strength of Texas's defense was third down defense.
Yes,
they're number one in the country. They're number one in the Big 12. I think they're only giving up 29%. Kansas, that was supposed to be strength on strength. The difference is Jalen really thrives in intermediate distances. And he can make plays with his feet in a different way than Jason makes plays with his feet. Jason's a straight line. If he gets a gap, good luck. And you almost saw what that looks like. But he's not a guy that wiggles around people, breaks tackles, makes people miss, to where Jalen sustains drives consistently. When that Illinois game got tight, he had a scramble where he got a first down. So he's just always able to scramble for first downs. Jason isn't. Jason's strength is 15 yards and beyond. It's not 12 yards, 12 to 7 yards is not where his most accurate spots are. And to his credit, he gets hot quickly. You saw that in the third quarter where he hits Casey on the right sideline, then he hits Wilson over the top. So it's not as if he wasn't having the type of game you would expect. It's just like you mentioned, it's just such a late time to be thrust into the game to where, like you said, a lot of the things are similar, but their strengths are much different as players.
And like point blank, hey, look, Kansas is lucky to have Jason being on this roster. So when I say like some of this, like Kansas needed Jalen Daniels to be on the field to beat Texas. Jalen he's a special player, and there's some things that he does offensively that others, there's not very many in the country that can. And so there are moments where I think you would have seen Jason Bean extend some plays differently. I think you would have seen him, move the chains with his legs a little bit differently. I think you're right. I think more ability to, layer passes throughout a defense. That is something that Jalen Daniels has some ability in the intermediate. He can throw a nice little up and down ball in the intermediate. And, there's so many little things. Like I don't want this to be a complaining too much about the refs or anything like that, because the KU shot themselves in the foot plenty. And, but like I look at, Texas was offsides on two third downs, and some of that stuff too. It's just frustrating. These little things. You needed a lot to go right, and part of going right was like all the calls. You need some calls to go your way too. So, but yeah, I don't think, I think KU got out executed with their backup quarterback for sure. I thought the physicality of this team, was noticeable I think Kansas played a very physical game. I liked a lot of what we saw, with how the defense was choosing to play that game. I actually think the defense, I think Brian Borland called a good game. I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of people are going to look at the score and look at all the yards and all that stuff, but it was, hey, look, we're going to play off and soft inside the 20s. We're going to try to limit like we talked about this before the game too. It's just like, hey, limit explosives, force this team to drive the length of the field, tighten up in the red, force field goals. That's what they were doing. That's what they were doing. And guess what? Their 2 touchdowns early in the game were explosive plays. They were 2 big plays that they finally they broke, right? They got they had them on 3rd and 9. They called an excellent little blitz there, and Quinn Ewers sneaks out the left side where, maybe Tommy Dunn should have been a half man over potentially, maybe. But Quinn Ewers just made a great play, and he finished it in the end zone for a 30-yard touchdown run. And then you're one safety angle away from Kenny Logan from not giving up a 50-yard touchdown run later in the game. And those were the first 2 touchdowns. KU was doing what they were, wanting to do structurally. It was, hey, let's force this into an execution game. On the defensive side of the ball, Kansas did what they wanted to do. They forced a lot of field goals, 2 plays off, right? Offensively, we're getting out. The Texas defense out executed Kansas offense, no doubt about that. Yeah. But it was close. It was close to making that a little bit more of an interesting game than what we saw.
Yeah, Texas, to the strength of their offensive line is that double team, that guard center guard double team. And I'm just telling you, it is very difficult to guard RPO teams as a linebacker when you're getting a lot of push on the inside, because you got guys in your lap and you're playing the run. That's why when you saw them run all the RPOs, Adonai Mitchell was that 12, 15-yard dig, because there's nobody underneath those passes. And when you're running the ball the way that they did, it's compiling. And then when you're not extending drives on third down, you're on the field more. And now it's hot. And now they're running pace. So I thought they had a really good game plan based on the conditions. And once they started running the ball inside, it really made their play action really easy for them.
And even the way that Kansas was playing, you knew that they were gonna have to survive 4 quarters, and you knew that the way Texas was playing, they were gonna wear them out. They're gonna wear them down a little bit. So it was gonna be a matter of how close was Kansas. Could Kansas out execute in the 4th quarter? And I mean, it was a rough go of it, and they needed a lot of things to go right, and they didn't. We are beyond excited to be working with Home Field Apparel here at KC Sports Network. They have so much great Kansas apparel. I'm rocking a sweatshirt right now. I was so excited to get that. Man, it's just unbelievably cool stuff. I've been rocking it all week. You can check out some of the shows I've been doing on KC Sports Network. I think I wore a different Home Field Apparel shirt for every single game this week, but I'm rocking the KU sweatshirt right now, and you can get a discount on your Home Field Apparel when you use the promo code NOSEATS23 at Home Field Apparel. NOSEATS23 gets you 15% off your order. So again, NOSEATS23 with Home Field Apparel. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Hey guys, it's Benny Heiss from Benny and the Bets, and when it comes to improving your golf performance, there is nothing quite like a PXG custom club fitting experience with a true PXG fitting specialist. This data-driven fitting is going to help determine the right club heads, perfect loft, lie, and shafts to be able to completely transform and change your game, and also lower your scores in the process. So no matter your skill level, you can be fitted for PXG's flagship Gen 6 clubs. They're designed to deliver incredible gains in distance, accuracy, and forgiveness. And for a limited time, you can use the code PXG75 when you sign up for a custom fit and get 75% off your fitting at pxg.com. Or you can give their store in Kansas City a call at 913-396-6100.
B-Mac, I definitely want to talk about the UCF game for sure here in a little bit. But I do have something I just kind of want to get off my chest a little bit. I didn't tell you I was going to say any of this, but we got the the letter from Travis Goff, imploring, more people to show up. And I know that this team just got beat by Texas, and that's going to put some people down. But I told you at the beginning of the show, I don't think I've ever been more, I can't believe how much optimism and belief and how excited I am about the future of this program after watching that team play against Texas, how hard they played, how physical they played. And, I think about, there's 100 kids out there playing college football, and there's been so many people that have been starving and desperate and at times hurt by this program, that they've wanted this team to succeed for so long and they haven't. And there's been so many down years. And I've heard it framed as like, there's a generation of kids that, have not got to see this football team, compete. But man, I don't know what this group has to do more to get people on board. This group of kids and this culture, and the kids that bought into this culture, they deserve every every seat in that stadium to be filled. And I know so many people I've talked to in the last few years that have just said, man, just get to 6-6. Just get the 6-6 and things will change. And a lot has changed for sure. And it's really cool to see the energy around this program. We talked about the Illinois game, right? And it was so cool to see this team up 21-0, and the defense comes onto the field, and there's just like this loud eruption because I think people started to realize how different. Anyone that was at the game against Illinois just realized how different things are at Kansas these days. But man, I want so badly for this group of kids and this program and this coaching staff to feel the level of appreciation that they deserve. Because yes, it has been a very quick ascent back into competitive football here at Kansas, and it's so exciting. But I want to see the love shown in its entirety. Not to, and I like there. Don't get me wrong. There's still plenty of love out there, but I really appreciated the sentiment of Travis Goff. Like if there are people sitting on the fence, if it's come support this team because they deserve it. And so I so badly want that message, to stick with some people that may not have been out to the booth yet this year. I think it matters. I think it matters to this coaching staff that Kansas is beyond lucky to have. And I know it matters to those kids. I know it matters to the kids. They want that place to be loud and ruckus. They want it to be a home field advantage, and they deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. And so I just hope if a lot of diehards are going to be listening to this show, but if you haven't been out to the booth yet, change that. Go support these kids. Go show your support. It matters. There's going to be a lot of people that listen to it. Just a few of the people that listen to this show up. That's going to matter. You might not think your individual contribution matters, but I think it's more than you realize. It's not going to take a 1,000 person. It's individuals making that decision to go out and support this team. So I hope people go out and support this program the way they they absolutely deserve everything that they have coming, and they deserve more. And I'm not dunking on the fan base, but I just hope that if you are able to get out there, you get out there. I had to say that. I don't know how you could say whatever you feel, BMAC, but like I just really wanted to make sure that I said that at some point in this episode.
Man, you're preaching, brother. This is how I feel about it. This is a team that has sustained competitiveness basically from the moment Jalen Daniels was inserted to the lineup 2 years ago. The team is more than Jalen Daniels. Last year it was like, well, Jalen's hurt, we can't win. This team can win with Jason Bean. This team can win, with guys being out. This is a team that has built infrastructure in a very short period of time. You count that first season because you have to, but the guy got here in May. So it's not as if he had this long period of time and long runway to build this thing. He built it basically as quickly as he could, and he built it into a competitive program where a team that you can be really, really proud of week in and week out. They're a team that improves based upon principle. And I think as a fan base, we cannot be a lack fan base anymore. And what I mean by that is when we look at every scenario, we only look at the worst of it. So if it's like the transfer portal, oh no, we're going to lose all of our players. That hasn't happened. We have the lowest transfer rate of pretty much any team in the country, returning 85% of our production. No one's transferring. How about your backup quarterback? Nobody in the country has a backup quarterback. We do. We might have the best backup quarterback in the country, a guy that we got back in here, and I am proud that he's a Kansas Jayhawk. I love the way that he competes. So you can go all the way down the line. You end up with the Jalen thing. And a lot of our fans are thinking about the worst possible scenario. That is a lack mentality. What I want to see from Kansas fans is more optimism, more joy, more celebration of the moments, more showing up, more loving your favorite player. I told Jalen Daniels to his face, he's one of my favorite Jayhawks I've ever seen play. I could say the same thing about Kobe Bryant. I could say the same thing about Jeremy Robinson. These guys are just competitors. They've improved every year they've been here. They deserve those seats to be full. They deserve a rock chalk when they're walking around this school, when they're walking around this city, when they're walking around the whole Kansas City metro. They deserve to be supported in that way. And if you're on the fence, if you're triggered by this, then he ain't talking about you. But maybe there's somebody else that you can get going. Maybe there's somebody else next door that you say, man, have you seen Daniel Highshaw? Call me. Write me on Twitter. Ask me about what makes Daniel Highshaw such an incredible pass blocker. I'll tear your ear off talking about it. Please. I would love to tell you more about how great some of these players are. Get to know them, celebrate them. Let's do this.
I think for some fans, this program has risen faster than some of the jadedness and wounds have healed.
Yeah.
And sure. I think it's just time. I know, and I think, you look at moments, like I think, BYU was obviously, I think a tense game, and Illinois was a tense game for, we talk about litmus tests for the program and all that stuff. They passed them. And they're favored to beat UCF this week. And they're probably going to be favored next week. They need every ounce of support, though. And they need it to be a home field advantage. And they need to feel that energy. And they deserve it. And it's such a crucial moment for this program, right? This program's growing before our eyes, and it's growing at a rate that is unbelievable. It's true. Like they didn't microwave it at all. But right. Man, they've grown so quickly. And so I hope that this group doesn't feel, underappreciated. I know I appreciate it. I respect what's going on in that program, in that building. I'm amazed. Absolutely. I'm amazed by it, man. And you want to know something? I want that to last. And I want the enthusiasm, and I want the, support of this program to want people to be here. I want this staff to feel the love and to believe that they can build something special here, because they already have. But I don't want, I'm not saying, I don't have some inside information, but I just want that staff. That's a special staff that's loyal to each other, that has, stuck together. That's pretty rare. That's a really special thing to have. And so I want that group to stick around in Lawrence, Kansas, and want to be here for a long period of time. And I want that support to match what they've done to this point. And those kids have done to this point. That's all. There should be some urgency from some people sitting on the sidelines to stop being so jaded. I think it's time. I don't know what else this program can do. I don't know what glory days you think you're looking back on missing this, So I'm not trying to get too preachy. It matters to me. I want it. I want this. I want the good times to be around for forever. And I can just see how special what is happening in Lawrence is. And I want it to be appreciated the way it is. We can talk a little bit about UCF here for sure, though. It's a big game, obviously, and UCF coming from the group of five into the Power Five, and they just had a rough one. They had a real rough one. 35-7, I believe. Wind up losing the game against Baylor, against a Big 12 opponent, and that's a tough way for them to it's a tough way for them to go. So I know this is going to be a really tough game for this team, especially since John Rice Plumlee, their starting quarterback, might be back.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll have, and they've got options anyway. The guy they've been playing in his place is pretty damn good too.
Yes.
So, UCF's got quarterbacks. That ain't an issue at all. And I think it's just as they go through this first year of their transition, one thing you're never going to have to worry about is speed. They've got speed everywhere. They're able to get to the football on defense. They're able to use those guys in space on offense. They're going to be a more challenging team from a speed perspective than, probably 80% of the Big 12. The difference is where they are with their physicality. Are they able to hold up down to down, game to game? And while I think they are a dangerous team, especially coming off the loss that they have, I think their bodies are taking a beating because they're just not as used to the physical play of the conference. I think K-State really pushed them around, and that was a game they nearly won as well down in Manhattan. So it's a game that they're a team that is very game. They're very tough. They're not intimidated, but there's a physicality to the Big 12 football, day to day that they're not quite prepared for. But don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that they can't win this game. They can definitely win this game, and they've got very good players.
They got a lot of skilled dudes, and they've got some explosive ability to how they run their offense, and they play with some tempo, and that can be problematic too if you get in some of the tempo game. Yeah, I mean you're right. I think the big thing for Kansas is going to be in the trenches for sure. Continuing to dominate on both sides of the line. I think that's going to be a crucial element of this game because you're talking about, some of the skill stuff. And you know what? You get the ball out of your hands quick enough and get it into the hands of your playmakers. You can mitigate some of that, line deficiencies on both sides of the ball. But man, Kansas have to win up front and on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. And, that's one of the things we talked about early in the season was the offensive line taking that next step from competent to dominant. And I think you saw signs of that in that Texas game where there was hat on a hat movement, especially those speed options. They ran them so beautifully. I mean, the execution on those plays was awesome. Armaje Reed-Adams and Kobe Bain is settled in at right guard. So it is a big physical offensive line too. And I like what they're doing. And the guy that, doesn't get a ton of credit, but is just quietly having a strong season is Cable Dude. He pulls a lot in their counter looks and does a really good job finding backers. He's rock solid in the pass game, not giving up a lot of pressures. He's just old reliable over there on the right tackle. So it's a good, strong group. And then, of course, you love the tight ends, what they do in the run game. Jared Casey and Heisha are, challenging each other for the best blocking highlights in space. Casey's finishing a guy to the ground every week. Heishaw's, able to pick up guys and pass pro, finish them to the ground somehow. But it's just a strong team, and I'm really liking what they're doing.
Oh, I do too. And when you talk about you're looking at the offensive side of the ball, I think they should be able to run the ball successfully. I do think that they're going to be able to, get the ball on the ground a little bit here. And UCF's given up 157 yards on the ground, every single week. And that's, I think Kansas is a team, especially after all the physicality that we've seen out of UCF having to endure. Baylor's a meat grinder too. K-State and Baylor are two teams that you don't want to go up back to back against, right? I think and then you have to go in and try to play Kansas after that. Like, I think that's definitely definitely an asset. I heard there's a lot of love from Lance Leipold and from Andy Koldnicki about the corners, the outside corners for UCF. And we just got done talking about a lot of guys that are going to spend a lot of time inside the numbers, And so I think you're right. Like tight ends, run game, utilization in the middle of the field. If you're trying to avoid some corners, that's a good way to do it, is to play a little bit of heavier personnel and, try to run the ball a little bit and try to work the middle of the field a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the way that Kansas affects corners is just by making them think about a lot. With the receiver group is not, I think they are what we expect them to be, but they've not taken a leap or a big step from where they were last season. And I think there's several reasons for that. There's been some rhythm stuff at quarterback. There's been a little bit of some wonky games. So I expect them to start playing better. And this will be a good opportunity for them to go against good competition. But like you mentioned, DJ Giddens from Kansas State, he ran all over him. They had a really hard time bringing him down. And Daniel Heisha is a guy that wreaks havoc at the second level. The way that he's able to with contact balance and stiff arms, and he'll be able to do just about anything.
No, for sure. For sure. And, you can play a nub formation and force that corner to be involved in the run game a little bit more. And you can put you might be able to get somebody, a little bigger out on him trying to block, a cornerback. So, there's some things that they can definitely do to kind of mitigate that a little bit. But yeah, I feel good that the offense, especially, Jalen Daniels, Jason Bean, who knows, I think, if it's Bean, I think they're going to have, a game plan built around him. And so that's going to be a crucial, thing to help kind of get him going a little bit. But also, like, I just think that, the ground game, I thought the ground game was looking really good early, and it felt like, maybe they went away from a little bit more than I thought they would. I thought Kansas would last week. I thought they'd try to run the ball a little bit more than they did. And, they had a little bit more struggles trying to run the ball, as the game went on. But yeah, I expect them to kind of put the ball on the ground. Defensively, I really liked what this defense did. They gave up a lot of yards. I understand that. I understand they gave up a lot of yards, like nearly 700 yards of offense or whatever it was. Schematically and game plan wise, like I think they were content with giving some stuff up underneath though. And so, when, who knows what they're going to try to do, that they just try to, they got tempoed a little bit for sure. They got challenged with that tempo a little bit for sure. And I think that could be a beneficial thing as this team kind of goes on defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to face teams that are RPO heavy by style. Texas hasn't necessarily been RPO and tempo heavy. They just kind of would take advantage of the conditions. But OU is going to play very similar. They're going to try to inside zone, get a nice double team on your guards and with the guards and push up against those linebackers, make it harder for them to get into their drops. That's where that underneath coverage is important. But when somebody is running the ball like they have been, like they did in that football game, it makes it hard for those linebackers to get into drops. When you think about it, Kansas has not had trouble containing the run all season. And that's why you've seen them not really give up those underneath passes, because they've been able to handle it with their offensive and defensive line. And this is, like you said, this isn't really about officiating, but what I'll say about RPO plays, it is really hard on linebackers when guards are 3 and 4 yards down the field and they're running slants behind your head. So if I'm a guard read as a linebacker, which a lot of linebacking systems are, I'm reading a guard that is running at me and they're also throwing the ball over my head. That's why, they have a legal man downfield. And, if I bring it up, OU fans might try to kill me. So I won't bring it up too much. But what I'll say is if those guys are 3 and 4 yards down the field, even if it's just 2 or 3 times, that sticks with the guy. He'll remember that. Like if I'm reading this key and this guy's in my face, I can't get into a 15-yard drop. I got to be here to protect this box.
For sure. What was there any defensive players that kind of stood out to you when you were watching that game against Texas?
Yeah, I thought OJ was terrific. I thought his ability to close in the passing game and to run up and hit people in the alleys was impressive. Just because he's a smaller guy, he's done a really good job of shoring up his tackling. And I think it gets to the point where the team's just very good when he's out there. He's got a lot of versatility as a player. The other guy's Cornell Wheeler, who started to come on about two weeks ago, where he started to get some more of those dime package reps against Illinois. And you could see his quickness and his speed could make an impact. And now you're seeing the full package. Now he's a rotation player. He got that big kick in the red zone. He's been incredible.
I was thinking a little bit about this. We talked about tackling being so crucial. And I know there was a couple of moments, but I'm trying to I don't feel like I walked away underwhelmed by the tackling against Texas. Just there's definitely going to be some moments where some bigger physical guys are going to get you, but there's a couple plays like the big explosive touchdown, bad angle, Kenny trying to come fill downhill, but I don't know if I would consider tackling to be the biggest issue. I think on the defensive side of the ball, I don't know if you felt the same way or if I'm forgetting a few.
Yeah, I remember there was a play where J.B. Brown was in the hole, got shook by the linebacker, a little jab step or something. And I thought to myself, I don't think I've seen that yet, with him playing. So that was just, kind of an aberration for the type of player he is. There was a play late, a screen pass where Rich missed a tackle. You're not used to seeing him miss. But, that was, they're on scholarship too. And so there's a lot of good players. They have their depth is not guys from Lawrence, Kansas. Their depth is guys that are 4- and 5-star players that are really decorated. And you started to see that the back end of their depth was a little stronger than ours. And I'm telling you, the way these guys built depth at Kansas, it won't be long before our guys look a lot like theirs. And I thought our depth was really good in that game as well. I thought Devin Phillips had a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
I loved what he did, getting separation. He had the big 3rd down tackle that forced one of the field goals. And he's a big, strong guy, so he's much harder to move in those double teams than some of the other guys that play there. But those guys stuck out to me, and I thought Austin Booker was still giving people fits out there at that defensive end. He was awesome.
He's gonna get drafted.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, I've heard really good things. I don't know if I told you this yet, B-Mac. I talked to someone that said that was the director of this Shrine Bowl. He thought Kansas had top 20 level draftable talent in college football right now. And I get why. Just because there's so many different kids that are legitimately getting real looks and getting a lot of love. I mean, Pooney is going to. I think Pooney. Like I've heard some people talk about Pooney as a top 100 pick. Dominic Pooney. I have heard, some significant love for Mason Fairchild. Whenever Jeremy Robinson comes out, he's going to be a draftable player. Mike Davitsky is going to get a look. I don't know. He's probably a day 3 guy or a UDFA type player, but he's going to get, he's going to be in the mix at some point here. Kobe, obviously, Jalen, Devin, those couple of those guys might have some decisions to make this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
there's some traits and there's some high level ability, and you're starting to see it kind of trickle out. The guy you didn't mention, I mean, you didn't mention him, not mention him on purpose because there's a big list of guys, but a guy like Armajé Reed Adams, is a guy that has the type of physical traits and still has 3 years to play here. So a guy that's going to be a very good player by the time his career ends. And like you said, man, there's just a lot of options, a lot of developable physical traits that people on Sunday covet.
Yeah, so I'm really just, it's just so exciting, man. Just the player development part we haven't spent enough time talking about. And so like when I was watching that Texas game and seeing some of these defensive players, but just seeing defensive depth, I mean, they've got guys that can operate well on defense, right? They've got a lot of kids. They got a lot. I mean, and I that was the thing I think that got me so excited. I know they gave up a bajillion yards, but it looks different than it has in the past, even though some of the product and some of the scheme stuff might have given up a lot of yards.
Right.
I was pretty excited. We're still waiting on a guest. We are kind of working that out here. So we might be add an extra segment to this show. We're going to take a break real quick. We'll come back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Thanks everybody that's hanging out. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you are watching. We're working on trying to get our guest here real quick. Did you send him? We'll get him a StreamYard link real quick. And then we will get going. While we're doing that, I do want to predict this game while we're doing that though. So BMAC, I'll go first. I'll go first. I think Kansas is winning this football game against UCF. I feel really good about it. You've heard some of the commentary from the coaching staff about how this team took to the tape, how they took to what they they got in, they saw the tape, and they made a lot of adjustments, and they were eager to try to go get things right. And I don't care who the quarterback is for Kansas in this game. I don't care if it's Jalen Daniels. I don't care if it's Jason Bean. I think this team's winning this football game. And I think you're going to see them run the ball effectively. I think you're going to see them play really good physical defense. And they're going to try to limit explosive plays as much as they can because this is a really talented skill group. But I think they're going to do enough to get it done. And, I think this is another opportunity. This is a kind of a big moment, I think, for this program too. It's just, you get off the Texas loss. How do you bounce back? We saw this team reel off a lot of losses last year. A get right, get back into the swing of things and go back to winning football games after a tough loss. I think Kansas wins. I think they're going to win 37-27. I actually feel pretty good about this team. I think they're having a really good performance. One of their best performances of the season.
Absolutely. I love what they're able to do physically up front. I love the way that matches up with UCF likes to do on defense and trying to use speed to run around us. I think we can run through them. I think our backs can give them a lot of difficulty at the second level. And we're talking about, Central Florida wanting to rebound after a disappointing team. I think you're going to see a really hungry defense, a defense that takes pride in their performances, a defense that pays attention to these numbers and some of these things. And I think they're going to want to come out and show that last week was an aberration. They're going to come out and compete and try to shut that run down and make them more of a one-dimensional team than they have been in the past. So I think Kansas can pull this one out as well. I have it 34-27.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And man, I hope people show up. It sounds like there's some positive, it seems like they're going to have a good crowd. Don't get me wrong, but I just, I want that message to be taken to heart, not just for UCF, but for this entire program to just kind of, get back and get going, because, man, they all deserve it. They all deserve it. We are in the. I'll tell you, no spoilers. We are, or spoiler alert. We're working on getting Tony Sands here. So we're excited to get him on here. We're trying to get him onto the show real quick. Obviously, it's a big weekend for him here at Kansas. So we're working on trying to get him before the show is over. But it's going to be pretty cool. So we're working on that. BMAC, I wasn't alive when Tony Sands was playing. But I knew who he was, and so when I was growing up, I had all kinds of these books of like the media guides. So I know who Hosea Friday is. I know Jim Stiebel was my neighbor when I lived in Lawrence when I was a kid. But Tony Sands, his name would be all over the record books. When he was at KU, it's just that was a special player.
Absolutely. The game everybody thinks about is the records, and the 38 carries for 58 carries for 396. Just a monstrous number. But I mean, and more than the number, it was about the performance and who he did it against. Seeing him go against a rival and get that victory, he was always legendary for that performance alone.
Well, so obviously, this is a week to celebrate him. And Glenn Mason, it sounds like, is going to be coming in to celebrate Tony's induction. It's pretty cool. And I think Nick Reed's did you play with Nick?
Yes. So what I'll say about Nick Reed is one of the standards set for the teams that I played for was that starters played special teams. That was just the way that it was. If you were a starter, you played special teams. So in 2005, I was a personal protector on punt. It's the worst job in America. I'm just right now. You have to identify who's blitzing and who's coming and who's not coming. And then usually the guys that are coming are huge. So you got to step up and block those guys. That job sucks. Well, I was the backup for Nick Reed in 2004 and 2005. Do you know how many snaps I took at personal protector in 2004 and 2005? 0. He took every snap. And, I wanted to play. I wanted that bad job. I wanted any job I could get my hands on. He just wouldn't come out. So there was a game we went to Austin and we lost 66-14. He took every rep. He took reps after he was done playing, because he only played the first half of that game. He took second half reps, for punt. He just would not come out. And then, what was interesting is that when it was my turn, the same thing. I never came out. If there was a punt in a football game that I was in, I took the reps. So what I loved about him was that he set the standard that this is the guy that's the only Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year that we've ever had at Kansas, and he took every rep for punt, no matter what the score was in the game. Just an incredible player, and a guy that really was a leader with action, and really was a leader with toughness, and just showing up and doing what he could do.
If I remember correctly, BMAC, in the Orange Bowl, there was a personal protector that threw a big completion on a fake punt, if I remember correctly.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that story is interesting because the play that we called is fire check. And it's just, if they give you this one look.
So hold on. So it was look specific, and they had it in and said, if you get this, you get it.
Yes. So
was it any punt, or was it that specific punt?
So it was that specific punt, but I would say during the course of my career, we probably called fire check maybe 30 times. And it was basically based on one thing. If there's a creeper off the right wide receiver, then you could throw the ball out to him. Well, they called fire check, and there was a corner creeper. The problem was he was coming from the left, not the right. But it was the first time it ever happened. So something in my brain was just like, well, probably my last game. So
come on.
So I said, fire, hot, and I throw it, and it's a duck. And thank goodness, because Micah Brown, who would normally just be running to cover the punt, we never practiced that. I never threw him the ball. He just happened to look back. And since it was such a pass with no smoke on it, it landed right in his hands. He was able to get the first down. And it wasn't as if I called the play myself, because I didn't. But I did throw the opposite way of what we had practiced, just because I was like, no, we've called this 40 times and we've never had a creeper. I want to do this once in my lifetime. So I was able to throw it out to him. Thank goodness he looked back and was able to catch it and get a first down, extended drive.
So what was the reaction from the coaches after that? Was it like, you know what? Like, hey, or what was it?
So on that drive, I thought I was going to score. So I broke a tackle and I reached the ball out and I fumbled. So Ryan Cantrell jumps on it, but they called like a personal foul on him. So we lost 15 yards. So it was like 3rd and 17. And then I think Todd threw a pick, or we missed a field goal or something. And I came off the field, and Mangino didn't say anything to me. And I went and sat down on the bench, and he walks up to me and he goes, "Brandon, we're not playing Shawnee Mission West." And then he just walked away. So I assume, I don't know if he was happy, mad, maybe he was on the fence about both options, but I just remember that being very funny. I'm thinking, why would we be talking about Shawnee Mission West in the middle of an Orange Bowl? But that was kind of his way of communicating. So I always get a good laugh out of that one.
I love that. Man. Well, we're going to try to get Tony on another time. We'll try to get him on. Maybe we can talk to him and how things went down this weekend for him as well. But we'll try to get him going here at some point. But that is going to do it for this episode of Booth Review. That is Brandon McAnderson. I'm Kent Swanson. We'll catch you later.
Peace.